Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Sports Business Insider. I am Denzel Snipes, and this is Sean Russell, MLB, former MLB and NFL sports agent. And we have a pretty interesting show for you guys because we're going to dive off into something that we had yet to dive into. I know we're like kind of post All Star break for MLB. You've heard us talk about NFL seasons coming up and everything. NBA season just ended, NHL season just ended. But what about the world of professional wrestling, in particular WWE, because you didn't know those guys get paid too. Those guys get deals too. That company gets deals too. There's a lot of stocks and a lot of money involved, a lot of moving parts. But before we get started, just want to let everybody know to check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Follow us and like us on and subscribe to us on YouTube and all the other platforms that I just said. Sideline Sports Show. We had an awesome episode just last night, but that's Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, Top Rope Talk, all pro wrestling all the time. Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hawk Talk with Dave DeRocher and Legion Boom Zone, Walt Thurman III. Tuesdays at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time after the Sideline Sports Show and the Gauntlet, which will be coming to you on Fridays at 8 Eastern. We will return on the air in approximately 2 weeks, so stay tuned. All right, now that that's out of the way, we are going to go ahead and get to the business side. World Wrestling Entertainment. So, just to kick things off here, as of 18 November of 2023, WWE has an estimated value of 8.37 billion. Now, just to give everybody a brief history, now former owner Vincent K. McMahon had bought World Wrestling Entertainment, back then the World Wrestling Federation, from his father Vincent James McMahon for $1 million. And at the time period, it was a regional promotion, and now since then, 40 years later, it's become a global entity. Um, Vince is no longer the owner of WWE. It's now owned by TKO Holdings. That's a totally another episode for a whole nother show. Maybe we'll get to it someday. But with that being said, part of it is the WWE content library and how much is it worth. One no, oh, well, no, what is the worth of the content library? Rather, one of the notable parts of the acquisition of World Championship Wrestling in March of 2001 was the acquisition of the WCW content library, which you all can see now if you have a Peacock subscription. You go into WWE, you watch anything of the past, not just WCW, but also ECW as well. Uh, Now, with that being said, we're going to dive off into some of these contracts. I'm pretty sure y'all are curious about how much these guys are getting paid. Sean, take it away.
Yeah, and obviously this is more Denzel's specialty and something near and dear to our hearts here at Sideline Sports with our other shows. And I'll let him go more into the salaries. But one thing I found interesting, and obviously I follow a little bit, but Brock Lesnar is still the highest paid guy, and he hasn't even really wrestled in 2024. Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, so basically, whenever he made his return to WWE in 2012, and really, honestly, I think they're probably still working out the kinks. I know Brock Lesnar's name got dropped in that scandal suit with Vince McMahon, but has since been cleared, so he's actually due back. I think he may make an appearance next Saturday at SummerSlam, but who knows? But basically, whenever he got hired back, he was Vince McMahon's guy. So Vince McMahon pretty much signed him to whatever he wanted to. Brock was the highest paid guy, and he would only wrestle like 2-3 times a year. It was just one of those what we call Vince McMahon contracts. We're talking about a guy who held the WWE Universal Championship and went without defending it for some 5 months and made people kind of forget about the title. But with him being the highest paid and everything, it was another Vince McMahon deal. But you can pretty much expect that Triple H ain't signing no kind of deal like that with anybody. I mean, the closest might be Roman Reigns, but I don't see Roman. I don't see Roman becoming a Brock like, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, wrestle every 8 months or whatever, unless he's legitimately out with an injury. But for the most
And
part, anybody in the sideline, the wrestle heads in sideline sports, anybody in the wrestling discussions group that I run on Facebook, will tell you that was a Vince McMahon move.
you mentioned Reigns, and he's number two, but it's a steep drop to 5 million. And then right behind him is someone who's a little older, Randy Orton, 4.5 million. Do you think Orton's on an old deal as well, or is that something just he's kind of up there because of the time he has put in.
He's up there because of the time he has put in. For a guy who's been with the World Wrestling Entertainment since 2002, and he's actually seen more on television now. He just returned from an 18-month absence back in November for a back injury. Almost retired, but he came back, and he is, what number is he? He's the third highest paid in the company, and of the ones on the top two. Now, granted, Roman Reigns took some time off because he just had a 4 year long world title reign, and he may even pop up next Saturday also, but that's another story. But since he's been back, Orton's been a consistent one.
Now, in comparison, some of these legends still make a lot of money. Undertaker's at 2 million. Stephanie McMahon's at 2.5 million. How are these guys still under contract, and what are they doing to kind of make their salaries at this point?
So, with the Undertaker, with a lot of the older guys, they sign Legends deals. WWE still makes a lot off of the Undertaker, even though he is retired. So Undertaker still does appearances on behalf of the company. Shoot, I remember, what was it, the Big 12 title game just in December. He showed up with other WWE guys, and he presented Texas quarterback Quentin Ewers the Big 12 championship belt. It was awesome. You should have seen it. And then not only that, but he's been on NCAA game day, ESPN game day, rooting on his Longhorns, always picking his Longhorns. Yeah. Even though he's been retired, WWE still makes money off of his likeness and everything. And in all likelihood, he signed to a Legends deal if he's not at the tail end of his old deal.
Now, before we jump into the 90s, how much is the impact of the ability to sell content outside of the live product has given their abilities to increase the wrestler salaries?
Um. So basically, and it's crazy because they had this old standing rule that they couldn't do that, but I guess now they can. But myself and Jacob Christner once alluded to Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was his best owned businessman. He can negotiate a whole lot. That's how these guys were able to go out there and land commercials, land movies, appearances in other video games. You just had three more superstars, one including Rhea Ripley, who are downloadable content on the latest Call of Duty game, you know? And you know how widely popular that game is. It's like the best shooter out there. So why not put WWE wrestlers on there? Rapper 21 Savage is on there as downloadable content. So but no, the ability to do that and supplement their salary is actually awesome, because it also puts WWE in a good light and also puts their name out there. I've always said that if you had never seen a wrestling match in your life or even heard of it, there's three people in wrestling that their name. And now we can probably say four, and that is The Undertaker, Stone Cold, and The Rock. And now you can say John Cena because of everything that they've done outside of the ring.
I 100% I agree. And then in the 90s, especially when they were kind of doing their war, the salary difference is kind of astronomical. The Giant, who was known as the Big Show, now spent 3 years in WCW and only made 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Sting, who we know spent, I think, almost 15, 20 years in WCW, only made $6 million in total. How much of the TV deals and WWE going public kind of also boosted the salaries?
It definitely boosted the salaries in the sense that, keep in mind now, as far as WCW goes, you got to keep in mind that this was an entity where wrestlers actually negotiated their own contracts. Ted Turner had way more money than Vince McMahon. This is the owner of WCW, the Atlanta Braves at one point, TBS, TNT, CNN. So Eric Bischoff was working. He said it himself on an interview. He was working with a literal blank checkbook. Like, you go out there, you get the hottest stars. I don't care how much money you got to spend or pay these guys. And that's how they was able to go. Because you look at Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan made $13 million out of 5 years in WCW, but his annual salary was $13 million a year. Goldberg made $8.8 million. 5 of that was made in 1999. It was just it's one of those things where, and nowadays with WWE, Now, granted, Vince is gone, you know, but you're also dealing with a now $8 billion company. Um, this isn't the $800 million company from not that long ago. Actually, this is now a company worth 8 billion. You can afford to pay these guys a little bit more. That just comes with the growing business. And not saying that WWE is new by any means. It's not. It was Capital Wrestling Federation back in the what 40s or something like that. Um, but it just comes with the growing of the business. That's all. 10 years from now, is it a $16 billion entity? Maybe you should do the rule of 72 and see how much of it would be. But then you also got to have an interest rate as well. I'm no mathematician. I just kind of remember that. Um, but that yeah, that as the business grows, the more you can afford to pay these people. And I'll leave you with this one example. When Kevin Nash left in 1996, I think Eric Bischoff had offered him something like a $5 million guarantee contract. I'm about to go back and look. It was like 4 or 5 million, guaranteed, fully guaranteed. He came back and told Vince McMahon, "All you got to do is match it, and I'll stay." He actually didn't want to go back to WCW. But at the time period, they were in dire straits. Vince couldn't afford to pay him, and then not only that, but at the time period, Vince said, "If I give you a guarantee contract, I'm going to have to give all the other guys in the locker room guarantee contracts, and we just don't have the money right now." You know, um, when you have the money, now you can pay your players.
100%, 100%. Now, speaking of them growing, back in November when this evaluation was made was right after their UFC merger, and we've seen some crossover. I think everybody kind of remembers Brock being the major star, but if you go way back, Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn kind of were the first crossover guys from UFC.
They were.
Um, what do you see kind of coming of this? Will there be more, crossover? Will they do crossover events, or is this just to put the fighters under one umbrella?
I would say more to put the fighters under one umbrella. The only ones that are really doing cross promotion wrestling at the time would be AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, TNA Impact. WWE is pretty much going to keep it in house, if not alongside UFC. But you'll start to see, things where UFC guys will show up, maybe get involved with some storylines, or just appear inside of the crowd. Um, Shoot, we've even seen NBA players. We saw Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson have a face-off in the ring on SmackDown not too long ago. You know, um, but I think that we will see the inclusion of more UFC in some form. I can recall right before Daniel Cormier retired, he challenged Brock Lesnar in the octagon. Now the fight never happened, but at the time period, Daniel Cormier was he was the UFC light heavyweight champion and the UFC heavyweight champion. He was going to put his UFC heavyweight title on the line. I think what they were doing is they were waiting for Brock Lesnar to win the WWE championship, and then he did. And then somehow, like, the deal kind of fell through. But they wanted to have it to where the first ever reigning WWE champion would challenge for a UFC title, and then maybe even win it. So I understand them kind of chasing history in that aspect. But no, but to finally answer your question, it's because of stuff like that. Yeah, they're definitely going to include more UFC.
And so, we've heard The Rock somehow, was part of TKO. Was he part of their board before he bought in, or did he buy in when this was kind of all going on? And what is his role now?
So he's on the board of directors and everything, and pretty much with the board of directors is they are over the board of directors at TKO Holdings. They are over operations for UFC and World Wrestling Entertainment as well. I thought the spot was well deserved. Rock has most certainly put in a lot, and he's like the biggest star in the world in any damn thing, right? But um, essentially, he is helping run the very entity he started out with. Um, he has a say so in a lot of things. He has a vote in a lot of things. Now, of course, he's on a board. But his role is huge, most definitely. I hadn't really had the chance to get into the ins and outs of what his job entails. Um, however, He has had a great working relationship with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, with Paul Levesque. You know, as far as everything in WWE, that, trust me, they both are on the same page each and every day, especially when it comes to storylines, content, in which we're gonna dive off into the TV deal, more of the TV deals here shortly. But being on the board of directors now, he's probably going to lean more on the WWE side than the UFC side because WWE is kind of home, right? You know. Um, but with that being said, no, most definitely, ever since he's been in that chair, he hasn't disappointed.
Yeah, and you touched on this, and Netflix is in the news again. They bought up the NFL Christmas games, and now if for those who haven't heard that they've bought Monday Night Raw starting in January 2025. Can you kind of touch on that, and also they've made some certain demands. Can you kind of touch on that, how that affects the product?
Right. So with the Netflix deal in January 2025, Monday Night Raw is going to be airing on there, and with that being said, there has actually been a call for edgier content for the last few years. I know the current deal that they had with Fox for SmackDown, Fox called for edgier content. They made an announcement that Monday Night Raw on Netflix will be unedited. It will be completely unedited. You know, this pretty much is one of those things where I know you can get easy access to Netflix, but you would think you could access me. I think that the product has not been TVPG for a while now. They just still have the label up there. I don't know, just to do it, maybe. It definitely will be TV 14 come January, officially. Officially, it'll be TV 14. I'm not saying the Attitude Era is completely coming back. I think he's trying to bring back the Ruthless Aggression Era, which is not bad at all. Not bad at all. One of my favorite eras.
And in terms of them demanding certain talents or certain championships be put on people, how do you feel about, and how does that kind of work?
One second. So, so basically, what was going on? The deal is reportedly a $5 billion over a 10-year period. Crazy because the one at Fox was $2 billion over 5 years. Netflix will also be home to SmackDown, NXT, and PLEs. Let's see here. Yeah, WWE's heavy interest in selling off his rights. So yeah, so it's actually it's going to house SmackDown, NXT, and WWE. Let's see here. Um, yeah, so far from what I saw is there is most definitely going to be edgier content. In which they have edgy content on Netflix anyway. I mean, come on, you got the movies and Sons of Anarchy used to be on there. So, but with that being said, more to come on that one. All I got out of it was that it was going to get a little more explicit, which hey, I'm all for it.
And then and you mentioned PLEs will also move in terms of, obviously they make money from Netflix, and they used to make money selling these separately on pay-per-views. How are they now making money on PLEs outside of ticket sales?
Well, pretty much the main source is through the Peacock subscription. I have it on auto draft. I believe it's $9.99 a month. But when you go back to the its predecessor, the WWE Network, which launched in 2014, and the first event that it showed was WrestleMania 30. And with that, was it 30? It was WrestleMania 30. When that occurred, we came up on pay-per-views, right? People had to spend like 40, $50 and it got added to the cable bill. They had
Yep.
millions of viewers off of that. But it's much easier if you get, 10 guys over here to pay $9.99 a month and like another 20 here and another 20 there. You can stand to make more money that way versus just, oh man, should I order, Bad Blood this month? Or should I do that? It's just much easier to just have these guys pay $9, $10 a month and they can get access to any and everything. Um, Also, off of PLEs is the deals as well. They strike deals with some of these other companies. Snickers presents WWE WrestleMania, or
I was gonna say I have noticed in the middle of the ring now there's always a sponsor.
yes, they make off these sponsors as well. The Prime Energy Drink presents the Royal Rumble. So and that right there really is not a new concept. They have been doing that for like years and years, but it is a huge money maker, and then also it helps when not just WWE gets that deal, when an individual wrestler gets that deal. Look at Logan Paul. Logan Paul, the current United States champion, he has a deal with Prime. That helps.
100%. And you spoke about the Peacock subscriptions. Now, back in our day, when you couldn't afford it, you had to go to a host party at a restaurant or whatever, and they used to set, they used to pay a different price, like for Sunday ticket.
Mhm.
How is WWE handling that? Do they still get a separate bill, or can they just pop up Peacock in the restaurant and they're good to go at 9.99?
They should be able to pop up Peacock because there's not really a business option for, like, whatever, because pretty much if you go and you subscribe to Peacock, that's just an individual. It may as well be an individual person that's getting it. So if a business gets it, it's just the same.
And we've obviously also seen them expand overseas. Is Saudi Arabia paying them to come there, or is it just they're just going and making sponsorship dollars when they go over to these overseas events?
A little bit of both, but Saudi Arabia is much definitely paying them. There was actually a controversy a few years ago because Saudi Arabia had very strict rules on women and everything. And as a matter of fact, one of the first, no, the first show that they did, they would not allow women at all. They wouldn't allow the female wrestlers. There was this outcry of how come Vince McMahon still did it. He left his women behind and such and such. Now I'm not here to talk about whether I agree with the decision or not or anything like that. All I'm gonna say is this: if Vince McMahon had not done it, he would have left $63 million on the table.
Wow, wow.
Saudi is definitely paying WWE, and
Now,
there's a lot of money in the Middle East.
yeah, and I remember seeing, obviously there were some people that were saying they shouldn't do it and they shouldn't make a deal because obviously there was other things going on the first time they went over there. But I think that's kind of blown over at this point because the events themselves are almost as big as the big four that they host over here. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Crown Jewel. And what was it? The other one outside of Crown
Uh,
Jewel.
Clash at the
Um,
Castle.
Say again.
Clash at the Castle.
Oh, that's in that is in Scotland, but yes, they definitely make money off of that also. Man, the ones in Saudi Arabia, I'm trying to remember the Crown Jewel, and I forget the other one. But yeah, they definitely make money. They actually have started going more overseas, and there has been talk of WrestleMania going to London, which I believe they actually could. Because let's face it, there's only been two other times that WrestleMania had been outside the United States, and both of them were in Canada. So
Yeah, yeah. And so we'll wrap up on this. Similarly to the NFL, obviously the WWE is the biggest product in its competition marketplace. Is there too much of a stranglehold for smaller promotions to survive? I mean, I know we've seen TNA kind of mutter along here for a little bit over a decade, but without the crossovers, can they really make it, or is it just something where they'll keep kind of popping up, going away, popping up again?
they can absolutely make it because let's get something clear, and that is WWE did not kill WCW. WCW killed themselves. So as long as these promotions keep creating new stars and keep the money rolling in and actually using it right and actually having engaging matches, engaging storylines and content, they'll be around for a very long time. Keep in mind, WCW used to kick WWE's ass in the Monday Night Wars for like 2 years straight, you know, until WCW started doing things that, yeah, WCW, that was a self killing. WWE did not kill WCW. So as long as your TNAs, well, New Japan's always going to be around, but AEW, as
Yeah.
long as they don't follow WCW's route, it'll be just fine.
Now, do you think, and we've obviously, you back in the '90s, it was something that was always thought about, especially when McMahon purchased WCW. Do you think the WWE would even entertain a cross promotion event?
The last time they did was ECW, and even then, ECW was very young. They were only like a year old. I don't think so, especially since Tony Khan has been known to take pop shots at WWE. You know, um, I don't think that they would do it with New Japan or Ring of Honor or TNA neither because, well, they have done it with TNA. They've had Jordan Grace come in there and wrestle. So maybe with TNA, but Ring of Honor, no, forget about it. They're in bed with AEW. But no, but we'll see. We'll most definitely see. Um, AEW hosts a pay per view every year called the Forbidden Door, and it's actually a joint pay per view. It's AEW and New Japan. Maybe in the future we'll see a WWE and TNA present.
Interesting. No, so we appreciate it, and that's all we have for tonight. But anything else you want to leave us with, Denzel?
Man, this is really weird because usually I'm asking you the questions. As a matter of fact, there we go.
No, it was a good show.
Yes, yes, awesome show. Well, take us out of here. You're in the pilot seat.
No, so thanks for joining us tonight. We're gonna take a couple weeks off, and we'll have more sports business insider news for you guys here in 2 to 3 weeks.